The mind resists what is difficult, not because it is incapable, but because it seeks comfort. This is its default state, preserving energy, avoiding unnecessary strain, staying within the familiar. Yet growth does not come from ease. It comes from stepping beyond what feels natural, from deliberately choosing discomfort, from training the mind to see resistance not as an enemy, but as a signal that something meaningful is on the other side. The lotus does not bloom in clear water. It rises through mud, through struggle, through the slow, unseen effort of pushing against its environment. It does not resist its conditions. It moves through them. The mind must be trained in the same way. The ability to do hard things is not about force or sheer willpower. It is about learning to navigate resistance intelligently, using it rather than fighting it. The struggle itself is not the problem. The problem is how one interprets it. Minds that achieve great things are not free from discomfort. They are familiar with it. They do not wait for motivation or ideal conditions. They do not expect ease. Instead, they develop a method, a way of approaching difficulty with clarity, with patience, with a mindset that transforms resistance into progress. The Lotus Method is not about forcing the mind to comply, but about guiding it, training it to move forward without becoming trapped by frustration, fear, or doubt. Growth is not about overpowering the mind. It is about understanding how it works, and then using that understanding to move forward with precision. The mind resists change, but it also adapts. It hesitates, but it learns. It seeks comfort, but it can be trained to embrace challenge. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not intelligence, talent, or willpower. It is the ability to work with discomfort instead of against it, to move with resistance rather than be stopped by it. The mind can be shaped. The patterns that hold it back can be rewired. The Lotus Method is not about force. It is about movement, awareness, and discipline. The goal is not just to get through difficult things, but to reach a place where difficulty is no longer something to be feared. It is something to be used. Embrace discomfort instead of resisting it. Discomfort is not a barrier, it is a signal. The mind instinctively resists what is unfamiliar, seeking the comfort of routine and ease. Yet every meaningful achievement, every moment of real progress, begins with discomfort. The challenge is not to eliminate this feeling, but to train the mind to move through it rather than away from it. The more one fights against difficulty, the more it grows. The more one accepts it as part of the process, the less control it has. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He reminded himself that hardship is neither good nor bad. It is only what the mind makes of it. He saw that suffering often comes not from the challenge itself, but from resisting it. When a person avoids discomfort, they strengthen their fear of it. When they engage with it, they dissolve its power. He believed that growth is found not in waiting for struggle to pass, but in stepping into it with clarity, knowing that what feels overwhelming now will soon feel natural. Seneca took this idea further, advising that those who voluntarily face controlled difficulties build a mind that is unshaken when true hardship arrives. He believed that exposure to discomfort, whether through discipline, training, or small intentional struggles, creates resilience. A person who practices patience with frustration, who embraces temporary discomfort instead of avoiding it, strengthens their ability to take action without hesitation. This is not suffering for suffering's sake. It is training the mind to see discomfort as a challenge to engage with, not a wall to retreat from. In daily life, this principle applies to everything. Someone who dreads starting a difficult task finds that the moment they begin, resistance weakens. A person avoiding exercise due to discomfort finds that the first few minutes are the hardest, and after that, it becomes easier. A speaker who fears public speaking realizes that once they start, the anxiety fades. The resistance is rarely in the task itself. It is in the anticipation of it. The only way through is forward. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to face hardship with calm acceptance. Seneca practiced discomfort so that no challenge would feel unbearable. Their lesson is clear. Action is the antidote to resistance. The more one embraces discomfort, the weaker its hold becomes. Growth is not about waiting for things to feel easy. It is about moving forward despite the difficulty, until what once felt impossible becomes effortless. Flow, don't force. Effort alone is not enough. Without direction, it turns into struggle. Many believe that productivity and discipline require relentless force, yet the greatest minds have understood that forcing an outcome often creates more resistance. Like the lotus rising through muddy water, growth happens when one moves with life's natural rhythm rather than against it. The mind, when pressured excessively, does not become sharper. It becomes fatigued, distracted, and rigid. True mastery lies in knowing when to push forward and when to let things unfold naturally. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, emphasized this idea in the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, effortless action. He observed that the strongest forces in nature, like water, do not achieve their power by fighting obstacles, but by moving around them. A river does not force its way through a mountain. It finds a path and carves through over time. Similarly, a person who tries to force productivity or clarity often finds themselves trapped in frustration. But those who align their actions with the moment, adjusting rather than resisting, move forward with greater ease. Aristotle, though known for his structured approach to reason, also acknowledged the importance of flow. He argued that excellence is not achieved through brute effort, but through habit, through a steady alignment of one's actions with a greater purpose. He believed that forcing an outcome without first understanding the natural process behind it leads to unnecessary struggle. A musician who tightens their grip on an instrument too much does not play better. They create tension. A mind that is overworked does not become more effective. It becomes clouded. This principle is evident in everyday life. A student who forces themselves to study for hours without pause often retains little, while one who studies in focused intervals absorbs knowledge more effectively. A writer struggling to produce ideas may find that stepping away for a moment allows inspiration to return naturally. A decision made in frustration is rarely as sound as one made after allowing time for clarity. Effort should not be abandoned, but it must be applied with intelligence, adjusting when needed, rather than trying to break through resistance by sheer force. Lao Tzu taught that balance between effort and ease is the key to sustained progress. Aristotle saw that mastery comes not from relentless pressure, but from understanding the rhythm of action. The lesson is clear. The mind, like the body, performs best when guided with precision rather than strain. To force is to fight against oneself. To flow is to move forward with both strength and awareness. Action with awareness. True progress is not about mindless action or endless overthinking. It is about striking a balance between intention and movement. The mind often swings between two extremes, acting impulsively without direction or analyzing so much that action never takes place. Both are traps. One leads to wasted effort, the other to paralysis. The key is to act with awareness, to move forward deliberately but without hesitation, ensuring that each step is taken with purpose rather than blind momentum. Plato explored this balance in his concept of reason governing desire. He argued that wisdom lies in allowing rational thought to guide action, rather than being controlled by fleeting impulses. He saw that those who act without reflection are like ships without navigation, drifting without control. Yet he also warned against those who hesitate endlessly, lost in thought but failing to engage with the world. To Plato, the ideal state was one where thought and action moved together, each reinforcing the other rather than working in opposition. Confucius shared a similar perspective, emphasizing the importance of deliberate action. He believed that wisdom was not in thinking alone, nor in acting without care, but in knowing when to pause and when to move. He taught that one should reflect before making a decision, but not to the point of inaction. A wise person does not wait for absolute certainty before acting. They take the best step available with clarity and confidence. Hesitation, when prolonged, becomes a greater obstacle than the challenge itself. This principle applies to every aspect of life. A person who spends weeks planning but never begins their project has achieved nothing. Another who starts recklessly without considering the best approach may find themselves trapped in mistakes that could have been avoided. The most effective path is one that integrates both. A moment of clarity before beginning, followed by committed, focused action. A student preparing for an exam does not need to obsess over the perfect study method. They need to pick a strategy and begin. An entrepreneur does not need to eliminate all risks before starting. They need to take calculated steps forward. Clarity comes through movement, not just through thought. Plato saw that wisdom lies in directing action rather than suppressing it. Confucius taught that reflection should serve movement, not replace it. Their lesson is clear: act, but act with awareness. Thought alone does not create progress. Action does. But action, when done without direction, leads nowhere. The balance between the two is where true mastery lies. Let go of control and trust the process. Control is an illusion, one that the mind clings to in an attempt to create certainty in an uncertain world. The more a person tries to dictate every outcome, to control every variable, the more they create resistance within themselves. Effort is essential, but obsession with results only leads to frustration. Growth happens when one learns to focus on what can be controlled: effort, discipline, mindset, while releasing attachment to what cannot be forced. True mastery is not about bending reality to one's will, but about adapting skillfully to what unfolds. Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher known for his teachings on change, understood this deeply. He observed that the world is in constant flux, that nothing remains the same for long. To resist this truth is to fight against the nature of existence itself. He compared life to a river, always moving, never still. One cannot step into the same river twice, for both the river and the person stepping into it have changed. Those who cling to control are like someone trying to hold on to the flowing water, grasping at something that cannot be contained. He taught that wisdom lies in moving with change rather than resisting it. Zhuangzi, one of the great thinkers of Taoism, took this idea further. He believed that trying to control life too rigidly leads to unnecessary suffering. He compared human effort to a butterfly struggling to escape its cocoon. If it is forced open before its time, the butterfly does not develop the strength needed to fly. Growth has its own rhythm, and forcing an outcome often disrupts the process rather than accelerating it. He advocated for a state of wu-wei, effortless action, not laziness, but the ability to move in harmony with life rather than in constant opposition to it. This lesson is evident in every challenge. A person preparing for a job interview can rehearse their responses, refine their skills, and present themselves well, but they cannot control the final decision. A student taking an exam can prepare thoroughly, but they cannot dictate every question that will appear. An artist creating a masterpiece can refine their technique, but they cannot force inspiration to arrive on command. The effort remains within one's hands. The outcome does not. Heraclitus saw that life is in constant motion, and that those who embrace change rather than fear it move forward with greater ease. Zhuangzi taught that trying to control what cannot be controlled only creates unnecessary struggle. Their lesson is simple. Focus on the process, not the result. Let go of the need to dictate every outcome and instead trust that consistent effort, applied wisely, will lead to growth. Control is not about forcing life to obey. It is about learning when to act and when to let go. Small steps, deep focus. Big goals often feel overwhelming, not because they are impossible, but because the mind perceives them as too vast, too distant, too uncertain. The weight of an unfinished project, a long journey, or a significant transformation can create resistance before the first step is even taken. The solution is not to wait for motivation or to force sudden, drastic action. It is to break the challenge into smaller, immediate steps, each given full attention. Progress is not made in giant leaps, but in steady, deliberate movement, one step at a time, fully engaged. Lao Tzu, the ancient Taoist philosopher, understood this well. He wrote, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." He did not mean that action alone is enough, but that the first step, no matter how small, is what dissolves hesitation. He observed that when people fixate on the enormity of a task, they become paralyzed. But when they focus only on what is directly in front of them, progress becomes natural. The mind does not resist a small step. It resists the idea of the entire journey. The secret is to stop looking at the entire road and instead engage fully with the next move. Aristotle also explored this principle in his study of habits. He argued that excellence is not a single act, but a repeated practice, built over time. A person does not become wise, disciplined, or skilled overnight. It's the accumulation of small, intentional actions that lead to mastery. He saw that deep focus on small, incremental progress is far more effective than chasing instant perfection. A writer struggling with an entire book should focus only on the next paragraph. A student overwhelmed by an exam should commit to understanding one concept at a time. A person seeking physical strength should master the next workout, not worry about the entire transformation. The key is immersion, giving each step full attention, trusting that small movements compound into significant change. This principle applies everywhere. A musician does not master an instrument by practicing an entire symphony at once. They refine one note, one passage, one technique until skill is built. An athlete does not reach peak performance overnight. They push through one session, one challenge, one level of resistance at a time. A person learning a new skill does not need to understand everything at once. They only need to focus on the next immediate action. The mind finds comfort in breaking things down, in simplifying what seems complex. in focusing deeply on what is in front of it, rather than being overwhelmed by the entire path. Lao Tzu saw that hesitation dissolves when the first step is taken. Aristotle taught that mastery is built in layers, through repeated and deliberate practice. Their lesson is clear. Progress is not made by staring at the summit, but by stepping forward, fully engaged, in the present moment. Small steps, when taken with deep focus, create unstoppable momentum. The task ahead may seem massive, but the next action is always small. And that next action is all that is ever needed. Self-compassion over self-criticism. The mind is shaped by how it is spoken to. Many believe that self-discipline requires harshness, that in order to push forward, one must be their own worst critic. Yet, this approach often backfires. Excessive self-judgment does not create strength. It creates hesitation. When the mind associates effort with punishment, it begins to resist challenges rather than embrace them. True resilience does not come from relentless self-criticism, but from self-compassion, the ability to guide oneself through difficulty with patience rather than condemnation. Buddha spoke of this balance when he warned against the two extremes, indulgence and self-punishment. He observed that those who are too lenient with themselves fail to grow, while those who are too harsh break their own spirit. The middle path, he taught, is one of discipline with kindness, acknowledging mistakes without allowing them to define one's worth. A person who berates themselves for failure does not gain strength. They create fear of future attempts. But one who treats failure as a teacher, who sees struggle as part of the process, develops the ability to persist without losing motivation. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, reinforced this idea with a different approach. He believed that the mind should be trained with care, just as a body is strengthened through steady exercise. He did not see mistakes as personal failures, but as signals of where improvement was needed. He warned against internal dialogue that weakens resolve, advising instead that setbacks be met with curiosity rather than self-blame. If a person stumbles, the question should not be, "Why am I so weak?" but rather, "What can I adjust to move forward?" This principle is vital in daily life. A student struggling with a complex subject may be tempted to say, "I'm just not smart enough for this." Yet that thought does nothing but reinforce failure. A more effective mindset is, "This is difficult, but every difficult thing I've learned before started this way." A person trying to build a new habit may feel discouraged after missing a day, thinking, "I always fail at this." But a better approach is, "Missing one day does not erase progress. I can continue now." The difference between those who persist and those who give up is often found in how they speak to themselves during difficulty. Buddha taught that wisdom lies in the middle path, avoiding both indulgence and self-punishment. Epictetus saw that setbacks should not be met with self-condemnation, but with adjustment. Their lesson is simple. Self-discipline is most effective when paired with self-compassion. Those who are too harsh on themselves create resistance to growth, while those who guide themselves with patience develop the endurance to keep moving forward. The mind does not respond well to cruelty. It responds to encouragement, to steady reinforcement, to the belief that progress is always possible, no matter how small. The power of strategic retreat. Stepping back is not the same as giving up. Many believe that persistence means pushing forward relentlessly, never pausing, never resting. Yet the mind, like any force, operates best when it is given moments to recover, recalibrate, and regain clarity. A warrior does not fight every battle at once. They choose when to engage and when to retreat. A mind that never steps back becomes fatigued, overwhelmed, and ineffective. True strength lies not just in effort, but in knowing when to pause, reflect, and return with renewed focus. Sun Tzu, the ancient strategist, understood this well. He wrote, "He who knows when to fight and when not to fight will win." He did not advocate hesitation or avoidance, but precision, knowing that stepping back at the right moment is not weakness, but a tactical advantage. He saw that battles, whether in war or in life, are not won by those who exhaust themselves, but by those who move with intelligence, striking when the moment is right and withdrawing when needed. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus applied this idea to personal discipline, teaching that overexertion, whether physical, mental, or emotional, leads to diminished returns. He observed that those who push themselves without rest do not become stronger, they become burned out. He believed that wisdom lies in understanding one's limits, in knowing that sometimes the most effective way to move forward is to step back. A mind that is constantly under pressure does not think clearly, but a mind that is given space to recover can return sharper, more focused, and more prepared for the next challenge. This principle applies everywhere. A person who has been working on a difficult project for hours without progress may find that stepping away for a short break allows them to return with a solution that was invisible before. An athlete who overtrains without rest does not improve. They weaken. A person struggling with a personal conflict often gains clarity not by arguing further, but by giving space for reflection. A mind that is constantly forced forward without moments of retreat becomes rigid, unable to adapt, unable to see clearly. Sun Tzu saw that timing is everything, that knowing when to act and when to pause determines victory. Musonius Rufus understood that discipline is not about endless effort, but about sustainable effort. Their lesson is clear. Stepping back is not a failure, it is a strategy. The mind, when given the space to breathe, does not lose its strength. It returns stronger. A well-timed retreat is not a loss. It is a preparation for the next, more decisive action. True progress is not about moving constantly, but about moving wisely. Balance effort with rest. Growth is not just about effort, it is about knowing when to rest. The mind, like the body, does not function well under constant strain. Just as the lotus needs both the resistance of the mud and the nourishment of the sun to grow, human progress requires both challenge and recovery. Many believe that working harder, pushing longer, and forcing productivity leads to greater success. But without rest, even the strongest mind weakens. True mastery is not found in endless effort, but in the ability to sustain effort over time by balancing intensity with restoration. Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician, understood the importance of rhythm in all things. He believed that just as music requires both sound and silence, life requires both effort and pause. He observed that the greatest minds did not work without breaks. They allowed moments of stillness to enhance their clarity. He taught that rest was not an interruption of progress, but a vital part of it. Without moments of pause, even the sharpest mind becomes dull, unable to process new insights or see challenges from a fresh perspective. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, also recognized this balance. He believed in self-discipline and perseverance, but warned against excess. He saw that those who pushed themselves relentlessly often lost their ability to think clearly, to act wisely. He emphasized that endurance is not about grinding through exhaustion, but about sustaining energy over time. He taught that true resilience comes not from forcing action without pause, but from knowing when to step back, recover, and return with full strength. This principle is evident everywhere. A student who studies for hours without rest retains less than one who takes deliberate breaks. An athlete who never allows their body to recover does not grow stronger. They become fatigued, prone to injury. A mind that never pauses for reflection becomes cluttered, overwhelmed by noise rather than sharpened by insight. Those who balance work with rest find that their efforts become more effective, not because they work less, but because they work with greater focus and energy when they do. Pythagoras saw that rhythm, both in music and in life, is essential for harmony. Zeno taught that endurance is not about constant struggle, but about sustaining strength over time. Their lesson is simple. Rest is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. The mind does not grow through relentless force, it grows through balance. Just as the lotus cannot bloom without both challenge and nourishment, success does not come from effort alone. It comes from knowing when to push forward and when to pause. Those who master this balance do not burn out. They rise again and again, ready for whatever comes next. The ability to do hard things is not about force. It is about understanding the mind, training it to move through resistance rather than be stopped by it. Growth does not come from a single act of discipline, but from a repeated process of engagement, adaptation, and persistence. The Lotus Method is not about overpowering difficulty, but about navigating it with intelligence. It is about knowing when to push forward, when to step back, and when to let go. It is about embracing discomfort, flowing with challenges, taking deliberate action, and trusting that small steps, taken with full attention, lead to transformation. The greatest thinkers, whether from Eastern philosophy, Stoicism, or ancient wisdom, understood that struggle is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The mind does not resist hardship because it is weak. It resists because it is untrained. But just as the body strengthens through repeated effort, the mind becomes resilient through practice. Every challenge faced with awareness, every moment of discomfort embraced rather than avoided, reshapes the way one engages with difficulty. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes second nature. The lotus does not rise through effort alone. It rises because it understands its environment and moves through it. In the same way, success in any challenge is not about pushing endlessly, but about moving wisely. Those who master this process do not wait for the perfect moment, nor do they allow resistance to dictate their actions. They take the next step, no matter how small. They cultivate focus, balance effort with rest, and let go of the illusion of control while maintaining full control over their own actions. The lesson is simple yet profound. Difficulty is not something to be feared, it is something to be used. Those who train their minds to work with resistance rather than against it do not just endure challenges, they rise above them. They do not just survive discomfort, they transform through it, and in this transformation they find something greater than mere success. They find the ability to face whatever comes next, not with hesitation, but with certainty.